A strategy around whimsy would be to remember, go back. Again, if faith guides your steps, this idea of remember in these books and letters that make up the Bible is 7,870 times. What I want to do is just go back to this idea of remembering, and have these little prompts that remind you of who you were before it got complicated. And you'll just slow it down a little bit. That would be the idea of a strategy towards whimsy, a leaning towards not being rushing around. And I still get there. I just get there a little happier.
Welcome back, everyone, to a special episode of the Sparks of Gratitude podcast. We are so grateful for you and that you're here. You could be anywhere in the world and you chose to tune into this and listen to us today. Why is today special? Because we've got Bob Goff, none other than your friend, my friend, author, coach, speaker, and introducing his new book, Catching Whimsy, which comes out. And when this publishes, I believe it comes out tomorrow, December 10th. Is that right, Bob?
That's it. That's it. It's a big day for launching a book. You work on things for a year or a year and a half, and then all of a sudden it's kind of like just like you find out if it's a boy or a girl. All that is born. It's a little bull.
Yeah, well, so something that I'm really excited about is one. I mean, I think we didn't necessarily plan it, but look, we were twinners today.
Yep, we're representing whimsy hard.
The School of Whimsy.
Yeah, absolutely. I look like that nutty senator from wherever that always walks up on. I didn't realize I look like that guy walked into a gala like, what?
Yeah, although I would say that I see a lot of more whimsy in your countenance. So yeah, so Bob, you were so amazing. A couple weeks ago, I was able to spend a few days with you and your wife and some friends and new friends in California at Disneyland of all places, I guess the best place we could imagine,
I know, right?
to attend something that you call the School of Whimsy, which you offer periodically. And so could you, I mean, I can share what my experience was, but could you tell a little bit about what that is and why it's meaningful to you?
Well, I'd like to do both. I can tell you what it's about, but I'd be even more interested in seeing what your takeaways were. I really think for all of us, we start out, it starts so simple when we're kids and everything's great. Maybe you went to Disneyland, maybe you just went and played with a snail at the park, but there was something whimsical. There was that joy, the simplicity, that's all that. And we lose it along the way. And so just a tap on the shoulder when we get together to remind ourselves of that childlike faith. If faith guides your steps, then to just get back to, hey, what was this before we got it really complicated? What did loving people look like before it got complicated by positions and issues and all that? What did it look like to just have some fun with some new and old friends? What did it look like to so it is a strategic whimsy, though. It isn't all just unicorns and confetti, that underneath that, there's a mile of strategy. And so as a trial lawyer, you could bring a lot of joy to a courtroom, but there's also a strategy. Like they're watching a TV show. I remember back in the day, there was one called Lost. And, they're stuck on an island. There's a smoke monster. Nobody really knows what that is. But you think that there's a plot. And then by the second or third or 10th time you watch, you realize there's actually no plot. Nothing is connected to anything. It's just random stuff happens. And then it cratered and it got canceled because people want to know there's a plot. And so if you're just all yippee skippy with no plot, if there's no thing, again, your plot might be fake. Your plot might be loving people well. Your plot might be thing. And for some people, business is their plot. They get a lot of joy in that, and that's great. That's not a lesser than move. However, sometimes we kind of lose the plot in our life because we learn our capabilities. Like you're an accomplished professional, but I don't want to just do what I'm capable of. There's that sense of calling. There's that sense of curiosity, or that's whimsy that you had when things were a little bit simpler. And so I love that we got together at Disneyland just to be a bunch of new and old friends, take a look at some intention to say, how could we get there? And then how could we flood the zone with joy? And not just a saccharine, yippee skippy kind of joy, but just true sense of fulfillment and purpose and all that. And I want us to return back to that place. Nobody else needs to go. I'm going there. If you want to find me, that's where I'll be.
Yeah, well, it was so inspiring and fun for me because you created an environment that let people kinda let their guard down. It's okay to be fun and whimsical, but really in the intention is kinda peeling back all of the limiting beliefs I've kind of put on top of myself to remember to live intentionally, to find what's meaningful and purposeful for me, and aim that direction, and let go of some things that I think I need I've felt I need to hang on to. What am I afraid to let go of? You said something to me at dinner, which is, how do we learn who we really are, what our authentic self is, and maybe you can kind of describe it, but you said, take away everything that I'm known for, and what's left is
Yeah, who you
that's who I
are.
really am,
Yeah,
right?
that's really good. And so for each of us, each of your listeners, let's say you're known for being really good skier, like ever you've been in the Olympics and you've got a bunch of gold medals hanging on the wall, which is terrific. Like, wow, who gets to do that? But take that away for a moment and to say whatever's left is who I am. And you might have shifted from being a really great skier to a really great insurance person. Like you've got a business, it's noble, you're doing whatever you're doing, you're providing for your family, and that's always a noble thing. You just need to make sure you go about it in a noble way. And so you're the person that is known for that. So take away that, and whatever's left is who you are. So that continually stripping this thing down to the chassis. I just bought an old 1971 Volkswagen bus. I've had a whole bunch of 'em. I always fix them up and then I give them away. I fix it up and I give it away. I gave one away to, somebody and they sold it and they got the down payment for their house, which is, like, beautiful, noble, but I thought, "You know what? I'm gonna get one and just keep it this time." No, that wasn't selfish, I don't think. I just thought, like, I'm gonna fix it up and actually just enjoy it. And now it goes slow. I mean, it hasn't seen 52 miles an hour ever. But that actually is helpful for me because I go fast. I'm like always in a big hurry, but you can't be in a hurry in a 1971 Volkswagen bus. And the thing is just a pile of nuts and bolts. There's nothing to it. They're not really valuable. But for me, they're valuable because they remind me of like, when that was not my first car, but it was early on. So a strategy around whimsy would be to remember, go back again. If faith guides your steps, this idea of remember is in these books and letters that make up the Bible. It's 7,870 times. So what I want to do is just go back to this idea of remembering, and have these little prompts that remind you of who you were before it got complicated, and you'll just slow it down a little bit. If I jump in a car that's a more modern car, not a 60-year-old car, then I wanna go fast. But in this one, I go in, I'm like, I'm not in a hurry because it didn't have hurry in it. And, that would be the idea of a strategy towards whimsy, like, a leaning towards not being rushing around. And I still get there, I just get there a little happier.
Ooh, I love that. Not get there a little slower, but get there a little happier. So tell me, what's an example of a time where slowing down allowed or revealed something to you that proved that point?
Oh, yeah, if you've ever been to the beach, sometimes it's hard to change gears from the go, go, go in the marketplace and all the demands that all the people you love have on you. And then you go to the beach and you walk and you start noticing some shells, and then you might find one of those sand dollars, one of those shells, but it's got a little imperfection in it. So you need to slow down a little more. See, can I find a sand dollar that actually doesn't have a chunk of it missing? And there's something really beautiful. A friend, Al Andrews, years ago, we did a gathering together and we gave everybody magnifying glasses. And we said, just look closely at something. So these are people that entertain a lot of people and are up in front oftentimes. And we just said, just look closely, and you can burn ants with it if you want to. I don't know. You'll need to trust that there's not a thing called karma. But if what if we look closely at things? Take a close look at the things that matter to you most. If faith guide your steps, think about what you're saying, and then not with an accusation, but to see, is what I'm saying lining up with what I'm doing? The way I'm living is that the way I'm talking to people about living? And again, you don't need to hit yourself. We're not pinatas. When we hit ourselves, it's not candy that comes out of us. It's other stuff. So then go to your family and to say that, and then say, what was your ambition when it came to what you did in the marketplace? That you really wanted to make the change in people's lives, which is really noble. But then along the way, it just kind of got confusing and things changed. And so don't be hard on yourself, but just say, hey, listen, I'm going to make a couple changes because I need to do that in my life. That would be whimsy.
Yeah, I love that, and you asked us a series of questions, and we had to, over a couple of days, dig a little deeper into ourselves because sometimes there's some resistance where we don't wanna reveal, "Well, I won't project on someone else." I say, "Well, I don't want to reveal to myself some of those truths about where I'm holding myself back." So you asked us questions like, "When was the last time I laughed just the hardest?" And
Yeah.
go back to that moment and think about that. So I think
Remember. Yeah.
yes, remember, and then when did I most feel like me? And I was digging deep and finding that, and when did I feel super authentic to myself? And when did I feel like I might have lost my whimsy? What might have what block might have put up there? And in my case, I'd say that it, sometimes that was when I was embarrassed in front of people or when I made mistakes.
Yeah.
And then I put up blocks. I'm like, "Well, that's never gonna happen again. I'm never gonna do that thing that makes me feel embarrassed."
Yes.
And the result of that to me was, well, I'm never gonna put myself out there.
Yes, so you make a rule because you're hurt, and then you make a rule. I don't want to feel that again. And that rule is actually helpful. It's so scaffolding for your wounded heart. But after a while, it kind of starts imprisoning you. This rule, the scaffolding is not helpful anymore.
Yeah, isn't that funny how that rule was there with the intent to protect me, and it might have done so in some way, but it also might have hurt me.
Yeah.
And so remembering and digging back in there.
You make a new rule to say, I'm not going to do that. Or you could say, what they're generally looking for is courageous people. They don't need to be courageous like, fighting dragons if there's such a thing, but to say that they're encountering difficult situations with some resolve. It doesn't even need to be hopeful, it's just some resolve that I'm doing this. If you surround yourself by just insecure people that kind of have a pack mentality and say mean things, then you'll live in fear because you might be the next object of the conversation at the mean girls table or the mean boys table. And so what I try to do is air gap some of that crazy. I'm just not going to be around the gatherings of people that speak ill of other people because down deep, every person at that table knows they might be the next one. Everybody's I've spent a lot of time in Africa, and hyenas are not courageous. They run in packs. And so what they'll do is encircle something that's maybe stronger than them individually, but weaker than them collectively. And so that pack kind of scolding, that pack public shaming, pack, it can cause us to not be ourselves anymore because you don't want to get the pack and you're not sure who's in the pack. But you do not want to be dinner for them. So you make a rule to say, "Hey, I'm peacing out. I'm not going to be on social media anymore. I'm not going to be." And then we all lose because you really had something beautiful to contribute. And so rather than raising up an army to defeat the packs of unknown people, what I'm not going to do that. So I'm not going to lead a palace revolt, but I'm also not going to peace out. What I'm going to find are safe people. I'm going to find voices I can trust, and I will recommit myself to being a safe person, to not naming somebody and say, this is an example of a bad guy, or watch out for this person, or I just want to, and this is again, Paul, writing to some of his friends. And he said, as much as it's within your power to do so, live at peace with everyone. And that isn't apathy, that's strategy.
So I love what you said there is deciding the type of person that you are going to be and then who you want to surround yourself with. So I've got 3 kids, from 18 down to 10, and you've talked to some of them before and
Ah,
inspired them, and so
wonderful people. Keep going.
yeah, keep going. So question for our listener and for me and for my kids in particular. Any tips on choosing those people to be around?
Oh, yeah, yeah. You can see the way that they interact with difficulties. You can see the way that they respond to the people around them in times of hardship. Are they the people that show up and lean in? Or are they people that all of a sudden they just go missing? It's like, where'd everybody go? So I want to find people that are gonna run towards the person that had a huge public failure, but they do it quietly and below the radar, or they run towards the person that had an even more dramatic private failure, and they run towards them, not with advice, not with reliving all the pieces of there. You're not coming there to inform, you're coming there to comfort. And then, that requires reading the room and then having your head on a swivel to say, "There's some people that are hurting that could use a nudge from me today." Sometimes it's checking in to say, "Man, thinking about you today." If you say, "How are you?" then you set them up to be a liar because 'cause they're not maybe in a place. So be mindful enough that you don't wanna help somebody out by making them lie to you. Just say, "Isn't life, just crazy sometimes?" I feel like it's like a tire with a hole in it. As soon as I pump it up and then it leaks out somewhere, and at some point you put the inner tube, in some water and, see where the bubbles come up, and, we'd had the, Salem witch trials. They did that with people. They put them in the water and saw if some bubbles came up. It didn't work so well. Sometimes a little bit of humor, a little bit of empathy to just say, "Man, I know we all feel like the inner type someday." If a person's faith is guides their steps, you could say they would say a story about Jesus going across the lake, and there was some crazy guy on the other side of the lake, and it said that Jesus steps out of the boat and takes all the crazy and throws it into these pigs, and they go off a cliff. It's kind of a pretty wild story when you think about it, but just think about the pig farmer for a second. And think about when he goes home and his wife says, "How was your day at work?" He said, "Well, that guy Jesus, he came over here and, we had all those pigs. Well, he put all the crazy guys crazy in the pigs. And they went off a cliff. So what was a great day for the crazy guy, because he wasn't crazy anymore, was a lousy day for the pig farmer and an even worse day for the pigs." Oh, well, I would interact with somebody who just had a big public or private failure by talking about someday you're the pig and someday you're the pig farmer, and oftentimes we're just the crazy guy.
Ooh, I love that. To acknowledge
That that just says to somebody, man, it gets pretty weird, doesn't it?
it does, and so I wanna talk a little bit about the book and the format of it, and that reminded me of one passage in this. So what this book is, the format, it's, Catching Whimsy, 365 Days of Possibility. So every single day, there's a quick one-page little note, insight. For example, I'll ask you about this one. This one, it says, "Thankfulness turns setbacks into blessings." And this is a big theme of this podcast, Bob, is, sparks of gratitude, where I think we can all be grateful for the wonderful stuff and for donuts and Disneyland and, and laughter and so on. But how do we find thankfulness, appreciation, or gratitude through the setbacks and the hard stuff? And so talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, think about that I mean, you have a day job like I did. You're very accomplished in everything that you do. And yet we can do this aspirational stuff to encourage people along the way. And then you go to where you live for part of the day and you'd be like, it is not unicorns. Like you got somebody that's upset about something or or you got an in-law or an outlaw or whatever it is, there's something that immediately grounds you. And can we take a moment and with some gratitude to say, these are the parts that I'm grateful for. These are the spots in between the stars that I want to gaze at a little bit and go a little bit deeper. To say, even though you might have kind of a whacked family situation, if you're listening, you can say, what I am grateful for is that there are many people in this family. Now, from time to time, they all get pretty whacked, but I am grateful that I travel in a community of people that bear not just the same last name, but our hearts generally beat the same. So it's not just putting a happy face on things, but finding some gratitude first. And then instead of seeing that person as your nemesis, like, oh no, it's like nutty Uncle Bill walks in, then you'll just say, like, you know what? I'm grateful that I've got a guy named Bill in my life because if nothing else, he gives me something to compare rational people to. So I think I think there's something about finding that gratitude that will brace us to deal with the really difficult and challenging things in life. And so you're doing it so that I would be more courageous. This is Acts 4:13 again, another story about what the people that were friends with Jesus did. And they saw these two guys, Peter and John. They saw their courage, and they knew they'd been with Jesus. And so I want people to do the same with our gratitude. That instead of talking about this thing of the day, like Southwest Airlines and roll your eyes or whatever the topic in the news is. But to just say, isn't it great that, and it isn't just being saccharine and Pollyanna, it's actually a strategy of gratitude. I'm not giving airtime to the negative stuff. I'm not going to let that suck all the oxygen out of the room. And you're really good at doing that. I think that's why you have a podcast. You want to release some really positive stuff in a ventilation system.
Well, I'm happy you noticed that. And again, I want to express gratitude to you because you knew that Kathy and I had been thinking about this podcast for a long time, but we had these walls up, these fear walls, and you helped us be whimsical and publish the
Look at you go.
podcast.
I mean, now
Now,
it's like launched.
yeah, but and now we're about a year into it, and our very first episode day, the first day we published anything was an episode with you. So you are our first
Ah,
repeat guest, Bob Goff.
oh, thank you.
So talking about whimsy, you've told me some amazing stories of some whimsical things that you've done that underneath them did have a lot of strategy. So one of them had to do with giraffes.
Yes. Yeah, that's like fresh off the idea board. We had something that didn't seem whimsical, which is a school. In 20 years, there's 9 kids there, and then more and more. And now we just got back from a graduation, and 1,500 kids that are living on campus in 70 buildings are graduating. We want to give an opportunity for these kids to go from diapers to doctorate. So we've broken ground on a university. It's like a massive project, and
And this university's in
Gulu, Uganda. It's like, can anything come out of Nazareth? So Gulu is known for like the epicenter of this 25-year civil war Uganda was in, and so we're ready to we're breaking ground. I mean, it's happening, and it's not just 5 shacks in a row, and we've got a sign that says university. I mean, these are 4-story building. I mean, it's a university, and then I was thinking, wouldn't it be great to have giraffes? And that's the kinds of stuff that whimsy is made out of. And so the person that has all the drafts is the president of Uganda. But getting a tea time with him is pretty hard, but I know his wife. And so that would be whimsy and strategy and to say, let's get together with her. And we were talking about universities, we were talking about giraffes. And then she ran across their version of the White House, grabbed her by the ear and brought him back. And for the next hour, we talked about giraffes. I'm like, I only need 6. And so we're getting giraffes. And the total cost, 0. It's gonna be awesome. And that's the idea, and it's not just gee whiz kinds of stuff. People are gonna know this university, and they're gonna know that this is the one that has a giraffe sanctuary next to it, and then we'll build a hotel for the kids that don't wanna go to university. We'll do hospitality if that lights them up, and then people will come. It's almost like one of those, "If you build it, they will come," kinda things. That's what whimsy does. There's a bunch of strategy underneath that and a lot of detail. about how you build an entire university and fund it and all that. And yet we're not off the scent. We're not just like off in like cotton candy in our minds. We're thinking, okay, there's like a lot of practical stuff, but we want to mix in the whimsical because that'll really drop a pin on this place and cause people all throughout East Africa to know there's this place we've heard of in Gulu that was made really in the bush, but now it's world class. I mean, so just even getting that flywheel spinning with putting in solar lights for this like pretty massive community that we built, and then all the commerce that's happening around it and all the other things. So we're buying up as much land as we can around the university so the university can be the university and it's not encroached on by everyone else. And then we're aiming to just serve. We want to, we'll have Ugandans running this because it's a Ugandan country and they ought to they have bright minds there that are at the top of their game. So we've collected the ones that we could find that are at the top of their game and said, okay, you're hired. Let's do this thing. So whimsy sometimes, again, where we started is that it can be confused as just hapless and sparklers, but instead, kind of like lawyers, we think, oh, no, 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 there's like a ton of strategy underneath this. But at the end of the day, the thing that's going to catch the attention of a 16-year-old Ugandan kid is they're going to look and see a university next door and say, I could envision going there. And people that lead well help people see things that aren't there yet. And so that's what I want us to do, whether it's in our faith. I see some things that isn't present in my faith yet, but I can start seeing them and other people can start seeing these, and then we walk in that direction.
Yeah, I love that. The reason I wanted to hear that example, one, it's just the coolest story ever of dreaming big and being whimsical under atop of all this strategy of, giraffes, but the giraffes are this whimsy on top of this big
Isn't that
strategy
right?
to serve and do good, and it's so much fun. And um and to reveal, I suppose, that whimsy can be just this daily moment of whimsy in my day and in my life where I can see love and light and gratitude and fun and laughter, and it can build into something that's big and grand. And I believe that the daily practice of implementing that is what can create that big possible future. And that's why I love this book, Bob. And this is why I encourage everybody to look this up. I'll put links in here so everybody can find it. But Catching Whimsy, you can go to
Yeah.
Bob's website or on Amazon and get this. And what you're going to get is daily inspiration. Every single day, it just takes you a minute to read something, and it's got a call to action to say, you know what, try this. And that's going to help
Right.
your life out a little
A
bit.
tap on the shoulder, and you don't need to go across an ocean. Go across the street. Like, you're surrounded by people. If one of the top billing things Jesus said was, like, "Love your neighbor," like, we're surrounded. I got some neighbors over here and over there. I got a couple nutty neighbors. I won't call them out. What I'll do is help them out. And so, Monday's trash day, and I've got a neighbor that used to take out my trash every Monday. Even though I'm ambulatory, I can do it. And yeah, he wanted to put wheels on that. There's no more whimsical thing to do than taking somebody's trash, perhaps other than taking the cans back once it's done.
That's a good point. Well, Bob, thank you so much for sharing your time with me and sharing your inspiration and wisdom and just getting out there and doing it because you inspire people to know that it's possible. I've met
On
people all over the country who hear your name and say, "Oh, that Bob Goff, when I read his book, it changed my life and it revealed to me that I can do something." And they just got off their feet and just started doing it.
I know, isn't that inspiring? Get your head on a swivel, see people what they're doing, and just marvel at that, and then say, "You know, I bet I could do something. I don't know what it is, but I'm good figuring it doesn't need to be big and grand. Don't start with 70 schools. Start with 7 minutes. What I'm going to do is I'm doing a 7 minute drill, and in the next 7 minutes, I'm going to like I'll send 4 or 5 notes every day out to people. Just like it doesn't take long to drop a note. I see behind your left shoulder is a Scottish Highland cow. I just go like, there's no more whimsical thing than that. I mean, I think giraffes in Scottish Islands are tied. So I'm gonna go find a cow today and pet it. If you're anywhere near San Diego, I got a couple, you can pet them. You don't wanna jump inside, because they don't know they have horns. Hook, nuzzle you, and gore you. Every mother-in-law joke right there. So that whole idea to say what I want us to do is to find the whimsy and instead of letting it find us, to say, set out today. What I'm gonna do is, and then you'll then fill in the blank and just go do it.
Well, there's our inspiration for today. Bob, thank you so much for joining us again. I'm so grateful for all that you do, and I'm going to figure something whimsical to do today and do it, and I'll report back to you.
Likewise, Randy. Thanks a million, buddy.
Okay. Take care, Bob. Bye bye.